Hello, everybody. For once, I'm not the one who's incredibly tired because I'm not the one who just woke up.
The roles have been reversed.
Oh, how the turns have tabled.
Indeed.
Quick disclaimer, as always, we are going to be talking about loss, and we'll also be talking about pretty much every other song on the EP. So, all of the previous disclaimers apply here. If you're not really in the mindset for it, come back later.
You should avoid this song at all costs.
Alright, so we're here to talk about probably the hardest song to talk about on the EP, which is Mortal.
Yeah.
Now, Mortal actually is like the only song with any music theory in it, so to speak. It was written in an F key, and I can't remember the exact notes offhand. I'd have to look at my where I wrote all of this down. But it actually has like specific notes to it, and with the fourth note, it's actually in a uh, diminished F key, which is actually not how you're supposed to use diminished chords. I found out, but that's how I was using it. um, and the reason I wanted to do it like that is because I wanted it to be like symbolic of we're home now, but it's not really the same, you know?
Yeah.
And in using a diminished, I wanted it to be like this sort of hollow hollow home feeling. And that's not how you're supposed to use them, but that's how I use them. Sue me, I guess.
We're
So
breaking the rules here.
so this song, as I'm sure many people who have listened to it have already gleaned an understanding of, is very much about loss.
Yeah. It's
In
not very subtle.
yeah, in in May of 20 no, yeah, May of 2021. I have to keep stretching. In May of 2021, I had lost my best friend. He passed away. And in when he did, I inherited his bass. And as much as that like allowed me to do music, it's still not something I wanted to like happen, honestly,
Yeah.
which I think is fairly reasonable. But him and I have always wanted to like create music. It's one of the it's one of the passions that we shared. And I wanted to immortalize him in some way while continuing on the dream that both of us have had. And that's how Mortal came into bearing. It was definitely the hardest song to write because I mean just the subject matter alone, but I had issues
Yeah.
finding the words for a long time. And I didn't really come at it with a very, I need this to start off with a certain, like, I'm okay, this is, I've lost someone, but that's okay, life goes on kind of feel to it.
Yeah.
Because I think that's kind of how Mortal starts off. It starts off as this, like, remembrance eulogy-esque thing, but it very quickly devolves. So by the halfway point of the song, I'm already begging, like, make this stop. I want to just continue life. And by the end, it's just complete, completely devolved.
The stages of grief, better in reverse.
Yeah. But I remember recording it more than anything else at this point about the song, because that recording session was really rough.
Yeah.
Because like, I'd make sure I was singing on note, and we had to keep stopping at, like, a lot because I was just, like, too shaky. I needed a second to collect myself to push forward. And I think at some point you asked me if we just need to stop altogether, and I just flat
Yeah.
out said no. We keep going. And we kept going, and we finished the recording. And I remember before I did the last verse, because I had shown you the lyrics beforehand,
Yeah.
and I remember before we did the last verse, I was like, okay, I want you to hit record and just fucking don't stop. Because I knew no matter how we did this song, there was never going to be another take. Like, there just wasn't feasibility for a second try at this song, vocally speaking. I
Yeah.
think we could have done, like, the first three verses, I think we could have redone, maybe. But anything past that, I think wouldn't have been able to hit as hard emotionally. And it's the only song that wasn't put up for streaming as well. And the reason for that is it's a very personal song for me. And I talked to
Yeah.
a lot of people about it because I didn't know if I even wanted it to be available for streaming. But at that point, I had already decided I need to put a full EP stream up because Elation and Cauterize were so poorly mixed that I wanted to put a full EP stream up to show people, hey, fix the audio a bit. It's not as bad. You can understand what's going on now.
Yeah.
But I was hesitant about Mortal for so long, and eventually I ended up going with, yeah, I'll put it up on the full EP stream, but that's the only way you can stream it. And I think I prefer that way. And obviously for those of you who have heard it, the song Mortal has the line called Into the Void, where I say into the void, and
Yeah.
that's where we got the name of the EP. And the EP's cover, what the AI generation for it was generated using the phrase into the void. Ryan and I have talked about this at length, but I've always seen like a vaguely humanoid shape there. And what was it you saw? An iceberg, I think.
Yeah,
Yeah.
kind of sinking iceberg, or you can only see the tip of it.
Like I said, I've always seen like a vaguely humanoid shape, but for me, the album cover and the song are so intrinsically tied together that you cannot have one without the other. Like they're so interconnected, you know.
Yeah.
This is a really hard song to talk about.
I haven't been able to re-listen to it.
I mean, you've heard it at least once all the way through since, but
Yeah,
um,
I
fun
listened to
fact
it
on
during the recording, and then I listened to it when it was finished
yeah, because you weren't
and
there
all
part
together.
for the production at all.
Yeah,
Like you helped with the recording, and that was it. Everything else was just me. I recorded the bass line. I put in the synth piano type thing going on, and I put in the angelic vocals background. Uh, by the way, that little sound bite in between verses, a sort of reverie.
yeah.
I jokingly named that the void during production.
Well, yeah, I remember that.
But this is probably like looking at it as a piece of media, this is probably the most song thing we have on the CP.
This is the most song of all songs.
It's a 6 minute song, which is actually closer to where I wanted most of our songs to end up. But I've never been good at like writing instrumentals. I've always been better at writing vocals and lyrics.
Yeah,
And in doing so, it kind of ended up with this necessity for shorter songs because I'm not sure how to write the vocals for or how to write the instrumentation. And that's where Mortal is very different from pretty much everything else. And because like I didn't write it with the vocals specifically in mind. I wanted to encapsulate every emotion that I have within the music, which is something I want to do with every song, but it was more important to me than ever with Mortal that I get the emotion correct and the delivery. Fun fact, by the way, the physical copies, I printed Mortal upside down on the track listing,
no,
and like it
on
was a
purpose.
mistake. I mean,
Yeah,
obviously it was a mistake, right? But I decided that um Mortal, since it was the only one that wasn't released as a single, it's upside down because of that. And now it's an artistic choice that I'm going to use in every single physical copy release.
there are no mistakes, just happy accidents.
There are no mistakes, just happy accidents. Okay, I think that's enough talking about Mortal. We had to wait until Saturday, which is actually the day all three of these track by tracks are meant to go up because it's my weekend today I wanted to make sure that when I talk about it, I don't have to go to work,
Yeah.
you know, for obvious reasons. I could never imagine why.
Yes, I wonder why.
A true mystery, honestly. So, we're gonna move on to general discussion now. Um, Actually, before we do completely, I will mention Mortal is the other song that had a lot of inspiration on its sleeve. Um, my best friend, his favorite band was Demon Hunter. And while we were working on this album, Demon Hunter was putting out their own album called Exile. And a lot of the lyrical cadences are, in a way, synonymous with that Demon Hunter album that my friend never got to listen to. The one that he was very excited about because it was announced way before it was coming out.
Yeah.
Anyway, general discussion time. Speaking of physical releases, as I mentioned, we had a few physical copies. I didn't make a whole lot because um I just didn't really feel like it was worth it. But I did make a few physical releases. I tried to sell them like at bookstores, at pawn shops, basically anywhere I thought would take CDs. Even my library. I was like, hey, could I just drop a few off? If anyone wants them, they could have them. And pretty much everywhere told me no. In fact,
I
I
was
went
gonna say it.
in fact I went to Half Price Books and they told me, hey, I'm sorry, it has to be in the original case. To which I replied, it is in the original case. I made these like 20 minutes ago. But they couldn't take them and I left. And we didn't end up
uh,
being able to sell them anywhere. But it is what it is. And so I had like a bunch of CDs that I didn't really know what to do with. And I ended up at my local vape shop that I go to. And most of the guys there knew that I was working on music and knew that I had made an album or an EP rather. Because
yeah.
anytime I'm up there, I would be talking about it. And I wanted to I wanted to do some sort of distribution, so I just kind of on a whim was like, hey, I made an EP. Would it be okay if I just drop them off here and if y'all can give them to some customers who might be interested, go ahead, I'm not gonna ask you for any money for it. But like it is what it is. And they were like, yeah, sure. So I drop them off and I leave. I come back a week, I think it was actually 2 weeks later, and I check in and I'm like, hey, I dropped some EPs off. How are they doing? While I'm grabbing my other shit. And the guy who's there tells me, oh, yeah, I have a copy, and everyone who works here has a copy. One of the guys who used to work here, he quit. And when he quit, all the CDs that we had mysteriously vanished.
Yep.
So, so some dude got fired from our vape shop and stole like half of the produced CDs. And I can make more. It's not too much of an issue, but they're like I think
I've
like
seen
$6 a piece to make roughly. So
Yeah.
if I do, I want to make sure I can actually sell them and flip it, and like not go completely deficit on it. So that's the reason we don't have any more physical copies. I wanted to sell them
Yeah.
through Bandcamp, but what I understand about what Bandcamp wants me to do, they want me to essentially go to the UPS store and ship it myself. That's fine and dandy, but I saw no mention of like Bandcamp saying, "Yo, we'll give you the packaging," or like anything of the sort. So
Yeah.
to me, what I understood is, so I have to provide the packaging and ship it. That sounds like a lot more work than I feel like dealing with, so I'm just not gonna bother,
I'm not gonna do that.
which is fine, but it is what it is at the end of the day, I suppose. A lot of people ask what genre we are, so I'm gonna ask you, Orion, what genre are we?
We are some type of rock.
Well, according to YouTube, we're electronic music. I got a mix yesterday, and I shared a screenshot with you, but I got a mix yesterday because
Yeah.
I get my own music and my recommendations on personal account, and I got a mix, and it was for the cover of the mix. It showed Elation, and it said it was electronic music. But both of those answers are
Beautiful.
wrong. We are post-progressive pagan metalcore. Okay,
Beautiful.
okay. Now that you guys are done leaving your hate comments saying that we absolutely aren't, I'm fully aware. I don't know what genre we are either. I think uh I think trying to confine yourself to a genre is not the best idea unless it's more of a broad strokes genre. It's
Yeah.
like it helps with brand recognition and all, but like at the same time, I think in a way it limits your creativity, music. Because once you say, "Oh yeah, I'm a metalcore band," then you're expected to release metalcore tracks, and you're expected to stay within that bubble to some extent. Of course, you can like experiment outside of it, but you're expected to stay within that bubble.
Yeah.
And one of those things that like kills bands very easily, stagnation, more than anything else, I think. It's like experimentation is necessary for a creative medium, but at the same time, you also have to make sure that when you're experimenting, you don't lose your identity in the process,
Yeah.
which is where I think a lot of bands kind of falter. Like like the Disturbed album Evolve. Um, one of the worst albums I've ever heard. Like just straight up, it's just one of the worst albums I've ever heard. And in my opinion, it's completely overproduced. They experimented too hard and lost anything that would be synonymous with Disturbed, and it just did not come out very good. And they wanted to experiment, and I respect that. At the same time, it's like you can't be losing your entire identity in the process.
Yeah.
I'm apparently still very tired based on the amount I am yawning.
Yeah.
One thing I want to make sure I never do, like as an artist, is like make that fuck the haters kind of track. What I call it is Mariah Brinks syndrome. And Mariah Brinks is like probably not the worst about it. I'd say Chad Gray is the worst about it, at least that I've heard. But Mariah Brinks has the unfortunate situation where she is the first person I heard do it, and the person I heard do it the most. So the two are kind of inseparable. And what I want to do is not is I don't want to say like fuck the haters. I want to be able to go no matter what record or what label we're working under or anything like that. I don't want it to be yo fuck the haters. I want to be yeah, this album was kind of bad, or in this case, this EP was kind of bad. Like this EP just had a lot of issues. Like I'm not even gonna lie, it just had a lot of issues.
Yeah.
But I don't want it to be like on my next album, like yo fuck the haters. I want it to be yo check this out, and then people come back and they're like, I remember the last CP was like not very good, and they come back and it's like yo this is so much better, and that's what I'm aiming for. That's what I want to achieve. I don't want to ever be in a case of like, or in a position where it's like, fuck the haters. I want it to be a position of like, if you just blindly hate follow me as an artist, then you're kind of doing yourself a disservice in a way because you don't, you're not like hearing the way that I have improved as an artist.
Yeah.
What's your favorite monosyllabic response?
I just agree. It's like there's not much I can add to it. You kind of saying it all.
I mean, yeah, but I'm gonna still give you shit about it. I have a tickle in my throat, apparently. Speaking of the CP having a lot of issues, I actually had paid for the Patreon for Bucket of Jake.
Yeah.
And if y'all don't know who Bucket of Jake is, you're doing yourself a fucking disservice. That man is hilarious, and he's honestly a huge inspiration for me as far as like how to how to work with music. But he's he's a wonderful music critic. And when I subbed to his Patreon, I was like, "Hey, I just dropped this EP into the void. Would you give it a listen? Let me know what you think." And I was fully expecting for him to tear us apart.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like
I
Jake's
was
a
just
really
like,
chill
yep.
man. Jake's a really chill man, but like I was fully expecting, yo, this is absolute dog shit. Like I was expecting that kind
It
of
could
response.
scrub.
And we didn't get that. And I'm like very surprised in a way. And I remember the video went up, and I checked it out the next morning, and I scrolled the timeline. I didn't jump to my my EP because I wanted to see what other music recommendations were being brought in. But I scrolled the timeline and I saw my EP, I took a screenshot and sent it to you. And I remember when I saw that, I was literally like jumping in my chair. I was so fucking excited. And then the excitement stopped and it was just nervous for like, I think it was the hour and a half I was waiting on you.
Yeah,
But I'm gonna actually pull up that video real quick. You wanna talk a little bit while
but yeah, like like I said, this has been pretty much more your thing than it has
What's
mine.
up, y'all? Welcome back.
And
What's up, y'all? Welcome back to the
I've also
Pawtucket
wanted to do
Brewery.
music, but at the same time, I don't have as much motivation as
yeah.
you. That's just a personal thing. So
He he what was it he used to describe the EP?
other than
Oh
manic,
right. He said a lot of potential, which is actually
yeah,
something that I have heard more than anything else in regards to critiques is potential. And I want to capitalize on that potential. I want to be able to go, yeah, I don't just have potential. This is gonna go somewhere. That's why
yeah,
I'm so hell bent on like this isn't like don't make a fuck the haters kind of song. Outside of them just being artistically fucking boring as hell. It's also like, you know, I want to be better. I want to show that people understood that I have, who understood that I have potential as an artist, don't just see it as potential anymore, but see it as like, well, it still has potential. It's so much better. And it's not just potential anymore.
yeah.
Let me pull up the exact moment he said what I'm thinking of. Uh, he said it gave off a really manic prisoner snuck away, and it's like, I gotta make this quick while the guards are away.
Yes, I have escaped the cell, and I must do it before they drag me back to the loony bin.
I have escaped my soul. Now time to trauma dump. He did mention that, like, to an extent, the songs end a little abruptly.
Yeah,
And like I mentioned, I don't know how to do instrumentation, like, to the extent I want to be able to. But, and that's part of the reason all the songs are so short, is because I just don't know how to do instrumentation. And with that, we come into this, like, sort of everything kind of crescendos towards the end, and then it just cuts. I think my roommate said it best. She
oh
said,
god, yeah.
I love how she described the EP. She said, it's like I was being edged in the worst way possible.
Fucking curse.
I love that so much.
Yes.
um, how would you describe the EP?
That's a good question. Like, if most of what I would say is like said before is like I really like the it almost a lot of the songs to me almost feel like either the moment before, during, or after a panic attack.
Well, Mortal is definitely before, but it ends with.
Yeah.
By the
Like
way, for
Mortal
those
is
of
just
y'all
the
who are
entire
wondering, I'm not like acting in the very end there. I legitimately broke down crying.
yeah.
Ryan can confirm this. I like just straight up was bawling at the end of that recording session. It it was not pleasant. Okay, so now I'm curious. Let's go through every song real quick and rank them before, during, or after a panic attack. Forgive my negligence. It definitely
uh
before, right?
yeah, I'd
I'm
say
thinking definitely
before.
before. Cauterize. I'm thinking before, but like right before.
Yeah.
Elation. Probably
I would
after.
say Elation's after, yeah. That
Yeah,
kind of
elation's after. Neglect.
Deering.
You think during? When that song was written, it was actually like shortly after a panic attack, so that's interesting.
It gives the emotion of like I
I
think that's just
understand.
because of the heaviness and kind of just explosive nature of it kind
I,
of thing.
I completely understand where you're coming from, but like when I wrote the song, it was actually like right after. So I personally find that very fascinating. Um, we already talked about Mortal. It starts before, but it ends during.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that people like refer to the music as manic, because that wasn't really a goal here. I'm curious how many people actually got the sort of manic feel from it, because that wasn't like intentional. Don't get me wrong, I'm
Yeah.
not like upset that it came off that way. I'm just like surprised because my
Yeah.
intention was mostly raw emotion in every word. And in doing so, I think that kind of bred this era of like this air of like what's the word I'm looking for? This air of like manic energy. But
Yeah, and just like an explosive kind of display of
yeah,
just
for sure.
raw emotion.
For sure, for sure. But I really like I know the album that the EP is really rough. I know it needed more work. Like even listening back on it, anytime I listen back on it, I notice another small point that I could have done better. But honestly, I couldn't be happier that I managed to actually put it out, you know? Obviously with your help, like I don't think I would have been able to put it out if you hadn't helped. And
I think you could. It probably just would have taken a little bit longer than.
well, you know me. I start projects and then I drop them midway through. And I think that this would have been another one of those cases if it weren't for the fact that you were helping me. Like I had a lot of personal drive in it, but if I was the only one working on it, I think I would have ended up dropping it. Because that's why That's why I don't consider myself an independent artist, despite the fact that I'm the main one doing pretty much everything for this project.
Yeah.
Is because as much as I really am pretty much doing everything, and that's not really a flex even. Despite that, I don't consider myself a solo artist because if it weren't for your help specifically, Orion, I don't think this would have come to fruition. And it definitely wouldn't have been the same. You had to go in and change drums constantly because I would set up a MIDI drum and it would just not be good.
Yeah.
I have been asked before why I wear a mask, like why we have masks. And
Yeah.
in this EP particular, you didn't really see Orion wearing a mask very much, but you did see me wearing a mask in the teaser for for
Honestly,
Into
that
the
teaser
Void.
came out pretty good.
And the reason I wear the mask is actually because I want to protect my personal identity. I think at some point I'll end up dropping the mask, but that's future Kanzuri's problem to deal with, you know? But at the
Yeah.
moment, as it stands, I want to be able to step away from music and just live a normal life. Like, if I get super big, I don't want to be come up to in the streets like, hey, can I have your autograph? Like, no, dude, I'm walking to fucking Walmart so I can grab food. Why are you bothering me? And that probably sounds like being a dick, and it's because I am. But like, I'm not really a very social person. I have stage fright, you know, I don't do well in crowds.
Yeah.
It like I went to my first concert less than a year ago because not because I never wanted to go to a concert, but because it was so anxious for me because I know the crowds, I know it's loud, and I was under the impression that if I ever went to a live concert, it might just ruin my entire feeling of music, you know? And that was such a pervasive thing that I just never went to a live concert until last May. And I went to a concert that Seether and Papa Roach were headlining.
Yeah.
But my favorite, my favorite set from that concert was neither Seether nor Papa Roach. It was actually the band who came before either of them. It was Bush. You know who Bush is?
I have not listened to Bush.
I cannot hear you for the life of me, man.
I have heard of them, but I have not listened to Bush.
Okay, I've been listening to Bush like my entire life. They're one of those bands that they've just kind of been pervasive throughout my life. It's not a band I will actively listen to very much, but this concert actually changed that. I remember before the concert, I was talking with my parents because I was going to the concert with my parents, and I said the only song I want Bush to play is "Come Down" because it's my favorite Bush song. And the set was nearing an end, and they started playing the opening riff for "Come Down," and they played a really extended version. They played that bitch for like 7 minutes, I think, 7, 8 minutes, because like towards the break at the breakdown of the song, Gavin Rossendale came off the stage and he came out into the crowd, which is not something that is like it's pretty commonplace in concerts from what I understand. But Gavin Rossendale is one of those like bigger than life figures for me. And he came down off the stage and he came in the crowd and he went all the way out to the lawn. I saw Gavin Rossendale from about 10 feet away that day. And that was a very surreal experience.
I bet.
And if we ever play live shows, and I don't know if we ever will, because again, I have stage fright, but if we ever do live shows, I want to emulate that. I want to be able to give people that kind of feeling, you know?
Yeah.
I want to be able to get off the stage in the middle of a song while everyone else is just kind of playing the rest of the song, and I just get off the stage and fucking walk around in the crowd for a bit. But I also want to, if we ever do end up actually doing the live shows thing, I want to do a cover every single every single show. Like so every single show we do, I want to be able to cover a song, you know? Because
Yeah.
I mention this all the time. I'm I'm less of an artist and more of a fan in the crowd. But not crowds. I'm again don't like crowds. But but having that experience, like for me, what I want to be able to do is like I'll go up on stage, I'll do like one of our songs, and then we'll switch. We'll do like a cover of some random song by some random band, whatever I happen to be feeling that week. And we play that song as just a rendition of it. And then we go back into more of our shit. Because I don't ever want to be like just playing our shit. I want to be able to play play the songs that have inspired me, the songs that have like been impactful to me, not only as an artist but as a person.
Yeah.
And yes, that means we're going to play basement.
Yeah. I saw that coming.
Yeah, I mean, how could you not, honestly? But yeah, it's a big aspiration of mine. It's not the biggest aspiration I have, I'd say, at least as far as music is concerned. But like, it's so huge for me. It's so important, you know.
Yeah.
But do you have any questions, comments, anything other than yeah?
I'm just kind of excited to see what we do because we've talked about um already. We were talking about what next as soon as we finished the
Yeah,
last one.
yeah, and I'm excited about it too. I'm honestly ready to just hop right into it. But like I said, I had to reel myself in a little bit. This next album is going to be more of a concept album because you know
Yeah.
how much I love concept albums.
You will turn things into concept albums.
I'll turn non-concept albums into concept albums whether they like it or not. But I think that's gonna be all for us today. So until next time, this has been Kanzuri. I've been joined with Orion,
Yo.
and this has been a track by track for Into the Void. If you're watching this in a playlist, we'll see you in about 10 seconds. That 10 seconds may not be uploaded for about a year, but about 10 seconds. Have a good one.